This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. Find all my work at mjmunoz.com. Henshin Inspection presents Half Boiled. I will be discussing the hits and misses of Fuuto PI and the conceit of the narrator protagonist. This is Writer Tears Episode 4. My instincts are pretty good. Fuuto PI Episode 4, the terrible M. Oops, I messed that up a little bit. Don't mind me editing here, live. Fuuto PI Episode 4, The Terrible M / Wings of Death, originally aired August 21st, 2022. The writer is Riku Sanjo, and the director is none other than Yousuke Kabashima, man. Yeah! So, starting off with the misses, I'm going to go rapid fire on these as best as I can. Fan service. This game, I can't remember the name of it, like Monster El Dorado or El Dorado Monster, but then it's called Fuuto something else at some point during the episode as well by Megu. It's a little too local maybe, like it being centered around Fuuto is kind of weird and I kind of don't get it. And it seems like Fuuto is not a big enough city for something like that to actually be feasible, but whatever, they're saying it is, and I guess I just have to accept it. I'm accepting that there are, high dopes and fangires. Well, Dopants is what I meant. Anyway, moving on. How did Shotaro get hit? Why didn't he put his hat on his back? If you don't know what that's about, I secretly hate like the last couple episodes of Kamen Rider W and Shotaro as a character because of that, but he's changing, and I'll talk about that more later. But anyway, it's strange to me that he could actually get stabbed through the double armor, especially because, I guess it is his body. But he's able to split his body in half to do his maximum drive Cyclone Joker rider kick thingy. So, you wouldn't think it matters that he's getting stabbed or slashed on his back if he can split his spine in half, But, whatever. His spine, his brain, his heart, his lungs, those all get split in half during the maximum drive. But if he's getting stabbed, it's not okay, I guess. So, whatever. I don't really get that. But, I'm rolling with it. Next thing is, did you see how big Tokime's head is in one scene? I think it's when she and your girl, Akiko, are carrying Megu. You can see, or Monako, whatever, her head is gigantic. It's really weird. It almost looks like, the angle's so weird, it almost like Akiko's head is turned to the side, and it almost looks like Tokime's head is coming out of Akiko's head, but it's obviously not. It's just a weird perspective. But her head does look ginormous, and she's in the background, not the foreground, and her head is larger than Akiko's, even though she's farther away from us, farther away from the camera, and therefore, by the laws of perspective, her head should be smaller. So, very strange. Very strange. I guess Studio Kai's, getting a little Kai-razy with some of their animation perspective, but, whatever. That's fine. I can deal with it. Next thing I want to talk about is, I wrote in my notes, I was alarmed at the size of her noggin. Anyway, I was. And then the last thing is, triple busted. There was a lot of scenes where they were putting 3 women's busts together and, lingering there with the camera. And, it made me uncomfortable. I didn't like it. And you could say that's fan service, but it's not. And I'm going to emphasize that. I'm going to make that issue even bigger a little bit later. So, stick around for that. As far as the hits are concerned, the tension between Tokime and Philip is unexpected and quite welcome. I thought that they would just kind of vibe because they're very similar to each other, but I like how Shotaro says, is this a hates-like situation? And I thought, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, because typically when you see people who you don't like, it's because they're very much like you, and you're projecting your dislike for yourself onto them, because you are the shadow of the true self, and, anyway. So I thought that was fun. It's neat. It's going to give them an arc. It's going to let them be characters and, grow and whatever. So that's good storytelling. I like that. Good job, Riku Sanjo. Next thing is Monako. I feel like I'm saying that name wrong. But anyway, the girl who becomes Megu, the nerd, right? Monako called Shotaro pretentious, and he admitted it. And I like that, partly because Shotaro gets insulted, but then I like it because he, takes ownership of it, and he says, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm pretty pretentious, and, that's not a good thing, but it's who I am, lady. So, I can dig that. I really like what's going on with Shotaro as a character, despite the fact that I whispered to you that I didn't like him as a character. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on from there. The Meganeura's design is really cool. I was a big fan of Guyver in the 1990s. ADV Films, if you remember that company, became I think they were, anyway, I'm not going to go off on an anime tangent, but they had a monster. If you don't know what Guyver is, look it up. Look up the Guyver 90s anime, Guyver bio-boosted armor. I think it's was that the 2000s? Anyway, regardless, Guyver. There was an enemy called Zerabubus, and Zerabubus was like a prawn-looking dude, and something about this Meganeura reminds me of Zerabubus, and it's very satisfying. And I love how they said that name in the dub, too. So good. Anyway, but yeah, the Meganeura, cool design, vicious dude, nasty. I'm going to wonder if it's actually one of the ladies who helps glam up Monako so she can be Megu. Anyway, and I like the idea that she's called Megu and this guy's a Meganeura. That's kind of fun. Yeah, kind of fun. Anyway, moving on. Double looks fabulous. That form showcase that they did was a visual blast and also good for those new to Kamen Rider Double and Kamen Rider in general. I think it could be useful to note their form changes and such, and I like how they displayed them. It was done in a very slick way, so kudos to the blocking and animation, although the mangaka could have done that too, because as far as I know, Sanjo did not illustrate Fuuto PI or Fuuto Tante. I should look that up and credit that guy, because, you know, I'm sure he composed most of the shots that we're seeing in the show, you know, the manga being almost like a storyboard, so he deserves props because this is a slick-looking show. I really liked the little nod to Kamen Rider X with the setup thing at the end, and you know their W turning into an X because them being switched, you know, having switched bodies. That was a lot of fun. I also wonder, is that anime exclusive or is that something that kind of showed up in the manga? Little chibi, fun, jokey illustrations at the end. I don't know. I'd have to check it out. Yeah, and then my final good thing, the biggest hit of them all, is that Shotaro has become quite the man, and that's something I will expand on later. Moving on in my questions, does it seem like Aurora is going to do what the original foes from Double did? It kind of seems like that to me, but I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I don't want to give too many spoilers for the actual show. You should go watch it. It's pretty good, with the exception of some things. Anyway, yeah. Next thing is he brought up this concept of a high dope, and like I don't know what that is. I think it's new to the show. Or to this story, you know, it's new to Fuuto PI, and it's an interesting concept. Apparently they can have more than one power or like an additional power if they're this special high dope or whatever, and I don't know what that is. The name is funny though, high dope. You're high on dope, you're high dope. Anyway, that's kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, I'm curious to see what this concept is. I'm sure we'll get to see more high dope dopants, although this guy could be the only one, at least in this first arc. I also have no idea how long Aurora and his crew are going to be in the background. I don't know how long the museum is going to be open for business and causing trouble in Fuuto, so I guess we'll see. Let's see. Next thing. So Monako being Megu was obvious, right? I mean, it was obvious to me. Her glasses are so ridiculous, and something about her hair, and like, I don't know, there was a certain angle when she was typing furiously on the computer, and like the guy was giving her side eye, and like she's got, you know, sort of an ample bust, and you could see that, you know, expanding in her, you know, gross transformation scene or whatever. But like it felt like, you know what, she's a little too curvy. Like she's way curvier than Akiko. So I wonder if that's because they're foretelling or, you know, hinting at foreshadowing that she's going to end up being this idol lady, and then sure enough she was. So whatever. And is that like a visual, like, is that lazy writing, or is that like, oh, we're gonna pretend that we really care about you not knowing her secret because there's a bigger secret going on with her, you know, crew or whatever? Who knows? Anybody could be that dopant, so can't say. Last thing, why did Aurora say fate is odd in bringing Tokime to a Kamen Rider? That feels to me like maybe he knows other Kamen Riders, but we'll talk about that more later. I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. The action was incredible. While the nerd lady being the idol was fairly transparent, everything else around it was slick, and Shotaro absolutely shone as a character. I don't foresee this show dropping the TNA with Tokime, so I will basically ignore it for now, because I really dislike the fan service. It's off-putting, but I won't stop cringing at the masses eating it up. Sorry, y'all. So I'm going to, before I go into my reflections, I'm going to talk about the absolute best, or worst, best, and most interesting thing in Fuuto PI Episode 4, which I've basically already touched on, but I'm going to be real explicit about them, bring those things to the fore, and talk about them for a couple of minutes, and then I will move on to talking about my reflections of this show, talking about the narrator, protagonist, and all that. So, yeah, I guess get ready for that in the next couple seconds. Here it comes, folks. So the absolute worst thing for me in Fuuto PI episode 4 is the desperation of otaku, or I guess it's not, it's the otaku baiting with this, with this idol, with Tokime, and a little bit with Akiko. She's much less busty, but, like, they're still putting her in, like, crouched over positions on the floor. Like, there's all this drama and action and terror going on, and, like, Megu is knocked out, or Monako, whatever, she's knocked unconscious and, like, hurting him or whatever. And even, like, afterwards when Shotaro was telling Tokime, like, hey, if you're really going to be my partner, you got to make sure you're taking care of the client. Like, you can't let your client be harmed. That's the number one priority of a detective, which I love, and that's something about his character that I love, but I'll get to that later. But, like, the camera is still, like, lovingly embracing her bosom, and it's like, guys, come on! Like, do you really need it that desperately that you have to have it injected into all of your manga and all of your anime and stuff? Like, we don't really need this. Like, you can still have a sensual or alluring character, but you don't need to, like, caress them with the camera. That's gross. And I don't care if people think, Philip and Shotaro are handsome or whatever in this. Like, it's different. If there's no lingering crotch shots on them, and to me that would have to be the equivalent. And I'm not some whatever. You can accuse me of being whatever you want, but I still think it's gross, and I don't like it, and it's unappealing and unattractive, and it, like, detracts from, like, the point of the story. Like, you have to really take care of that client of yours. Look at her knockers, man. It's like, no, stop, go away, don't be gross, knock it off, go do that somewhere else, go do that where it's welcome, please. Don't put it in my show or in my manga. Regardless, that's what I thought was the worst thing. What did you think was the worst thing about Fuuto PI 4? So, in my opinion, the best thing about Fuuto PI episode 4 is Shotaro acting like a real man. He's totally stepping up in all these ways, which are fabulous. I touched on it a little bit earlier. I love that he admitted that he is pretentious, because some of us are, and it's good when we admit that, because the first step to changing is admitting you have a problem. But also you can just take ownership and say, this is who I am, and just deal with it. I'm a little pretentious, but whatever. You can accept me, and like and follow and share and subscribe and all that good stuff to help me out. Anyway, that was Shotaro, not me. Okay. Also, like, him putting himself at risk and getting slashed in the back in order to, first of all, him putting himself at risk and like catching the blades or the needles or whatever of the dopant with the trigger magnum, I think is what they call it, and then it getting discarded. Like, that was really cool. Like, he's showing himself to be such a competent warrior, but he's also, like, a good mentor, and he's a good teacher, and he's a good detective because he's caring about his client so much that he's calling in Ryu, and he just took total control of the situation when he was so seriously injured that he made it not about himself. He made it totally about everybody else and making sure they were all taken care of before he couldn't hold out anymore, and he just collapsed. And, like, for a second or a couple seconds, he's, like, holding his right arm up in a weird way where it almost looks like, is his hand supposed to be on Tokume's shoulder and this is like an animation error or something, and they forgot to, like, crop in the shot or something like that? I don't know, it could have been, but I thought it was weird, and I was like, man, look at this guy just posing. And then after the fact I realized he was injured, I thought, man, this show is really making me love this guy and love his character and love his growth from what he started off as, which was horrible in Double, or, like, not very good, truthfully, in Double, to, like, being such a great character by the end of it. And, like, in this, he's stepping out even farther and stepping up even more and being such a man, and I absolutely love it. So that was the best thing about this episode for me. I want to know what you liked so much about it. Okay, so I want to know what you think was the craziest, weirdest, most odd or thought-provoking thing in Fuuto PI episode 4. This is what I thought was weirdest. It seems like Aurora knows about Kamen Rider. So, like, does him talking about Double in the way he is, and him talking about Tokime being brought by fate to a Kamen Rider the way he does that imply that he knows all about Kamen Riders and that he's dealt with them before and maybe fought with them before or whatever? Like, is that the implication here? And if it is, kind of what do we do with that? And I don't know, what does that mean for the show? I don't know that it actually has that implication, like, what's it going to mean for the future. I just think it's very interesting that he's living in this fleshed out world where there's not only Double, but if you look at Double, I would say that Double, based on the crossover interactions it's had with other, Kamen Rider movies and series, that, like, Double does in fact live in a world, like Megamax tells me. Megamax tells me that Double lives in a world with at least like 5 other Kamen Riders. So I don't know if you hold all that canon or not, but I kind of like to, and it, like the comment made by Aurora here makes me think like, yeah, we can consider that he's dealt with other Kamen Riders before, and maybe he's a shady guy who got involved with the museum stuff, rebooted it as Newseum, which that's not the official name, that's just what I call it, because he knew about Kamen Riders and he's seeking that level of power for whatever ends. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think that's pretty neat. So, what did you think was so odd or interesting or got your attention in this episode of Kamen Rider, sorry, not Kamen Rider W, it's Fuuto PI. Let me know. Drop it in the comments. Okay, so now I'm ready to go ahead and talk about my reflection on this episode. So here's my big question here. Does the conceit of the narrator protagonist kill tension and drama? Why do I say that? Why do I ask that? We know that Shotaro survives this based on the narration alone. So, and you could also assume he's going to survive because he's a huge part of the show, right? Although, if he did die and then, like, Tokime had to become the other half of Double, or Akiko did or something, that would be incredible. That would be super cool. Because I think Shotaro needs Philip to become Double, but Philip doesn't need Shotaro to become Double. Philip just needs another body, and I don't think there's an actual thing that makes them compatible. But there could be, I'm not remembering that from the show. Anyway, we know Shotaro survives this, so, like, it's not exciting to think, oh, Shotaro might die in this series, or at least, until things transition and, he is dead, and then, Tokime takes over or whatever. I was only with Senpai for a short time, but he taught me everything I know about being a detective. Oh, and I guess Philip does too. Anyway, sorry. It's Tokime's dramatic voiceover when Philip is, or when we're at Shotaro's funeral. Anyway, but, like, yeah, so if we know that Shotaro lives till the end of the series or the manga or whatever, because he's the narrator, does that take away the danger and the threat and the tension of him dying? Because, to some extent, you would think it should, because, well, if he just dies, he can't be alive to tell the story. That's where I'm coming from. So, where does that tension come from? And maybe my premise is flawed. Let me know if you think I am flawed in thinking that if there's a narrator, he can't die or she can't die, because then the story can't continue without them. Because you can always pick up with a new narrator, right? If this narrator dies, those could be his last thoughts that he's narrating. I know it's supposed to be that he's got this book that he's writing or whatever. It's like the case files of, Shotaro, or the case files of the Narumi Detective Agency, which that might be a cool title for something. Anyway, but so ostensibly everything we're seeing is his account. He's the narrator, the possibly unreliable narrator, writing all this stuff down for us, and it's like we're reading his files, right? So somebody else could pick that up, but if that's not the case, if it's just like, it's the style of it that it's giving his narration to us, then it's not dependent on him being alive or dead. He could be dead, and it's like, yeah, this is what happened when I died, and this is what happened after I died. Like, that could totally be the case, but I don't know for sure. And I don't want to belabor the point and really go into it, but if you have a different perspective on this, that no, you totally could have the narrator be the protagonist. It doesn't kill the tension, and these are the reasons why. I'd love to hear that. I personally think there is tension and stakes set up, because Shotaro, in his parting words to everybody before he collapsed, and before the narration let us know that he knew he was going out and he wasn't going to be able to handle things, is that now we get to see everybody else, like, suffering and bearing the sorrow and the burden of him being taken out of commission and possibly near death, and we get to see how they perform and, like, if they can carry on. Like, Tokime has stakes because she doesn't want to let her senpai down. Philip is upset and wants to figure out what the mystery is, because he has a vendetta against the Dopant for hurting his partner so badly. Akiko, she cares about him as a friend, so she wants to see him taken care of. Ryu, the same thing, basically. So, like, everybody has stakes and reasons that they want to see this case solved and see, Shotaro pull through, and, like, they'll all be thinking about him and, like, have that dramatic weight on them. Like, all their actions will take on more meaning, I think, based on what's happened to Shotaro, and I think that's pretty cool. So, like, that works, yeah, I don't know how else it goes. And I don't think it's a problem necessarily. I've just never thought about this before, and I'm thinking about it now, so that's why I brought it up. Anyway, I think it's time for me to end this episode, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. So, adieu. And I want to encourage you to check out my Dawn Brothers analysis that I have ongoing over on Super Sentai Sanctuary. That's what that's called. And I've got 25 episodes up now because there's been 25 episodes of Dawn Brothers. So I do plan on talking about and analyzing Kamen Rider Geats, at least the first couple episodes, and I'll go from there and make my decision. That'll be on regular old Rider Tiers, which is where I'm going to be talking about Kamen Rider, obviously. I decided to make Half Boiled its own special little thing in its own category because it's just covering Fuuto PI, which is a shorter show. By the way, I'm seeing that Fuuto PI on Crunchyroll, they're saying now that it's going to be 6 episodes, but I thought it was supposed to be 12 episodes, so I don't know if like they update the information over time or what. But there are those things to consider checking out. And I also am writing a children's picture book series inspired heavily by Tokusatsu, and I'm talking all the way about, classic Tokusatsu. So right now I'm actually working on my Godzilla inspired book for children, and I'm pretty, well, anyway, I need to keep working on it, but after the manuscript is done, which I hope to finish in the next week or so, I will be contacting an artist and seeing what to do about that, and then hopefully I'll have the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one out. And anyway, I hope that you'll enjoy that, and I hope you'll stay tuned to mjmunoz.com, and you'll look for the updates on that, and you'll be around maybe for updates on when I have it finished, and I can share it with you. And if you like it, you can check it out and enjoy that bad boy or not. It's up to you. So anyway, that's it. This is MJ. I leave you with peace and blessings. Until next time, take care, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you can find more at mjmunoz.com, as well as my entire library of analysis, art, and fiction.